Welcome again to season 3 of The Well. How y'all doing today? Good to see you, Miss Kim. Brother Donnie looking good sitting next to each other. Brother Kim, Dave.
Oh, you left it hanging. Oh, no.
And on her first episode, Miss Patrice. How you feeling?
Hey,
welcome.
How you doing?
What up, though?
On today, we want to talk about why do people prefer online church. Sister Kim, why do people find it not a benefit to come to church?
I mean, if it's convenient to stay at home, much like a lot of stuff that we do in life, if it's it's easier to shop online, easier to do things like that. It's easier to stay at home, and sometimes people feel like I don't have to deal with the traffic, right? The attitudes, perhaps, of some people at the church. So, staying at home watching church online is very appealing nowadays.
Watch it, Sister Kendra. Are you going to hell if you don't go to church?
You mean like physically go to church?
Yeah, just physically get up. Physically get up and go to church.
Go to hell.
I just gotta be sure, gotta be clear. In my opinion, I would say no. The word definitely says, don't forsake the assembly of yourselves, which means, as the body of Christ. But depending on certain circumstances, coming to a physical church may not even be possible, depending on, where you live. If you're, for those that may be in the military, how they kind of just meet and kind of just do it as they can. So I would say no.
Well, some people say, you just have to physically be there. They say in the Bible, they say you have to be amongst one another.
You have to, but it does no good for you to just be in a congregation of people if you don't take that church back home and apply it.
True. So, Brother Donnie, if I can listen to a sermon that's going to touch on what I'm going through, just pull it up on YouTube on my phone. Right. Is there an issue with that rather than going to church?
Man, do it. Do your thing. I think sometimes the issue is, for some people, church isn't relational. Gotcha. Come to church, sit in chair, you go home. You haven't developed relationships. Nobody's looking to develop a relationship with you.
There's no community.
There's no community. So you go to church and you feel just as alone at church as you do when you're at home in your bed with a box of Cheez-Its, white cheddar, jalapeno.
Oh,
come on, fellas.
Come
on,
man.
He might have done it before.
Yeah, but that makes sense too, because it's also just with anybody, whether you've been coming to church for a while or whatever the case may be, everybody's going through something, right? So if you feel in that kind of isolated state, I could just sit at home and cry for that.
But a lot of people don't come because they don't feel like it matters if they come. They don't feel the connection. Especially when you come into a big church, you can feel like, oh man, they got, especially at our church, West State, you got Magic, you got Angela Bassett, Courtney. They don't care if they miss me, but a church is only a church when everybody shows up, and we do miss you, and we notice when you're not there. And then even though it's convenient to be at home, it's not the same as getting that love and that same fellowship with people when you're in the building. So that's something that's missed out on.
Well, it's a different experience watching online than actually being in the sanctuary. I remember somebody told me a story about how a friend of his, was diagnosed with cancer, and she hadn't told a lot of people, but she was gonna die from the cancer from what the doctors told her. But when he went to church and saw her and her husband full-fledged in worship, it sparked something within him to see somebody going through something respond to God in the way that she was. So there's a lot to be said for people who worship in community, because especially if you know what they're going through, you can relate to what they're going through, and they're going to encourage you to do something.
True. Sister Patrice, how you feel?
Yes, sir. I'm good. How are you?
So do you think there is a magical experience of being in the church that you can feel there that you can't feel when you're at home?
Yeah, a lot of the time, but also I have a great worship experience at home by myself. And sometimes there can be distractions at church, a lot of the time. But I do have a great worship experience at church as well. I think it depends on your relationship with God and your where you're at.
Okay.
Because I know for me, I love coming to church. That's not something that I have to, not all the time, force myself to do.
Right.
But online church, I love it. I get to be a part of so many different congregations across the world, and I feel like if they're having a revival, I'm there with it. I'm taking my notes. If it's a certain pastor or speaker, whatever the case may be, I can follow them, and I can be a part of the community church, but then I can also be a part of the online community and still feel connected. Because I know even the church that I was attending when I was getting my undergraduate degree, I still follow up with what they're going on. I still get the emails. I still kind of check in from time to time. It just kind of keeps me in the know, but it's also very refreshing to hear to have a variety of speakers for me. Some people have like a certain style or genre of preaching. For me, I like to get it in different formats and from different people, because I believe that God can use certain people for certain seasons in your life too. So sometimes I may be concentrated on a particular ministry, and that ministry is ministering to me during a particular season while I'm coming to church.
But are you like me? Are you more prone to fall asleep, to be on your phone? Because like Patrice, I'm with you. I could worship at home,
Right.
But I feel a little more pressed if I'm in the congregation. At home, I'm not as engaged. You know what I'm saying? I could pause and go flip an egg in the skillet real quick, come on back.
Sure.
So I'm not as engaged.
I know,
as
so I'll have both. If I try to be intentional. Sometimes I kind of like, if I know for a fact that if I'm finna be all over the place, I'm like, either I put my phone somewhere else, or if I know that I was watching a sermon or watching church service and my mind was all over the place and I was texting, doing whatever and not taking notes, then I'll go back and rewatch it or rewatch the entire worship experience just so I can make sure that I get that because I was being Kendra, I didn't miss what I was supposed to have. Gotcha. Just because, you know how it is, even in church, if my phone vibrates or whatever the case may be, I could miss something that I was supposed to get.
Right.
So I need to, try to check myself and be like, okay, so you know better. So if this is something that God led you to watch or participate in, then you need to be fully engaged.
I was doing jump in real quick. I was gonna say there's nothing wrong with like online church or anything, because I was even reading, I forget the website, but it was like Christianity like .com or Christianity Post.
Oh, you
but
really
it was just
say it.
nah, for real. Nah, I'm serious. We was doing just research about it, and they were just talking about like, and they made a real comment like, if you don't have an online church in today's world, you're not keeping up with society and the culture, so you will fall behind, and that's the reason why a lot of churches can't connect to people, is because they falling behind. They can't keep. Don't mean you change who you are to adjust to the world, but you definitely have to keep up with what's going on. And we living in a society where like we got Instagram, Facebook. That's the reason why we're doing the well. Like we trying to connect with many different people.
Right.
So you can't have an online church. There's some people that won't even go to West Day, but they watching the well, and they watching that. So it definitely is a purpose to it. But for me personally, I feel like where I'm at in my level of spiritual walk, I definitely need to be in the building.
Right.
For somebody else, maybe starting out online is where they need to be right now, and that's all they can do, and that's fine.
Yeah.
For me going to work, that's the privilege time that I only watch online.
I'm with you, Dave. I feel like I need to be in the church because I need to see my people. I need to connect with you. I may not have seen a person or a friend for that week or 2 weeks or the month, and sometimes you just need to have that human touch. If I'm and like what Kim was saying, if I'm at home and I try to watch, maybe I watch 15-20 minutes and like, you know what, I'm going for a
I get
hike.
distracted. I get distracted, man. I start doing other stuff, or like, if, you can kind of tune out if you don't feel like caring about something. You're like, oh man, they talking about this announcement. I don't care. You don't do a whole lot of stuff. Like, man, I heard that before.
Right.
Whereas if you in church, you can be like, no, I'm here.
Connected. You're
Focus,
plugged
you
in.
connect.
I tune out just if I'm not feeling it, I ain't feeling it.
Real talk.
I'll tune out online. and
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
But if we not there,
No, that's real. But it's harder, I think, to do it in the church than it is at home, where you can just walk in another room,
Right.
or hop in the shower and be like, whatever. I went to church.
I'll put this question to the table: should the church become more interactive, like involve live tweets and Instagram stories in the church service?
I think you have to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tree.
No, this one's safe.
Oh, just here. I think you have to, because that's the culture right now, right? Like if you know that people are snapping, if you know that they're still on Facebook, Instagram, like you're saying, all these different things and forms of social media, then why not try to extend your reach in every way possible? That's like if Jesus only stayed in Galilee and Nazareth and never went to Capernaum. But people were there, and so he needed to extend his reach everywhere. Not only that, but people were trying to kill him. But still, beside the point.
That part.
Yeah, he had to run.
True.
Nah, but yeah, you definitely got to stay inactive. Kind of what we were just saying. You got to keep with the times.
So Patrice, I'll ask you a question. One of your friends came up to you and they said, "Hey, why are you hanging on? Why are you going to church every Sunday? Like it's a magic bean or something magical going on. When you can experience that same thing on your phone."
I mean, there's a different experience in the church when one or two are gathered. I mean, we're all worshiping together, all your friends together. Even being in the choir, I'm in the choir all the time, singing with my friends. That's different than on the phone. I mean, like they said, you can put the phone down, go in the kitchen, make some food. Like it's just it's not the same experience.
Y'all,
It's not as personal.
It's
Right.
yeah.
It's personal. I mean, there are some benefits to. I know in my case, I do come to the building, to the church service, but I do a lot of online for like personal study time. You know what I mean? Online churches, different pastors that I might watch, they're not my primary feeding, but it's a supplement to what I already do. So I think that in that regard, online ministry, online churches are a must.
Amazing.
They're a must in that regard,
y'all remember? I forget who the pastor was, but it was a guest preacher here, and he talked about his message was the late great church, and he talked about how like churches were fighting the times, and how like in the future people gonna come into these buildings and like treat them like museums. Like man, people actually came here to like have church, and it was so powerful because you can almost like paint that vision, and you can see like, I mean, I'm not trying to be funny or put our church under the bus, but we can definitely see like there's been even some less numbers with people coming. You know what I mean? Like the balcony, I remember just seeing full. Now you see spaces all the time, and you see that, and it's like, what's happening? There's more options out there. There's more distractions. Maybe people aren't as connected, or they just feel like, yeah, I could just watch at home. Why do I need to get up?
And some of the biggest tourist attractions in Europe are
Churches. Real
Oh,
talk.
Absolutely,
Church.
yeah.
I mean,
And they're stunning. And I think it plays a part into obviously keeping up with the times, but then you also have to think too, if it's the amount of churches are expanding.
Yeah.
Like that number is steadily increasing. And so if you have one central church, but then that central church has 16 other churches, it splits. So, and that's something that I've seen in Atlanta. I saw it in Alabama, and it's something that I've been hearing it being talked about in Los Angeles as well. That's something that the global church is having a problem with, trying to stay connected when you have so many different distractions. And then now with social media, you have so many more needs that are on the forefront, whether it's homosexuality, rape, abuse, neglect, just different things that people are dealing with, and they're more vocal about it. So you have different churches that are appealing to certain needs, and so that's attractive. If I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and this church is I'm drawn to that right now. Then you have some who are floaters, not necessarily tied to a certain ministry, but just tied to God and just kind of going where God sends them.
But could that lead to a bigger problem though? Like, could that lead to church being like a pair of jeans? Well, that brand don't work for me. I'm gonna go over here and try that brand on.
That's what
That's
you see too.
So then that kind of negates the fact that the point of community and the church and the capital C church to an extent. If I go here and I'm living this way and perhaps they're preaching on that too much, and let me go online and check out this pastor now. So it kind of it's.
But that's more about that individual's walk and that person, because if like you feel that you're not getting something from somewhere, that's one thing if you want to switch to church. But if you feel like they you know, like you can go to church that talks about prosperity, and that's all they talk about. You gonna be blessed. You gonna be blessed. You gonna be blessed. Clap 5 times. You gonna man. You just want to feel good every Sunday and not actually be convicted. Like nah, man. I know I got the stand from the club on my hand. I know I was out here sleeping around doing whatever, but I don't want to hear about that because Lord love me just how I am. You don't. God can only judge. Like how many times we see that.
Right.
And it's like that's a lot of reasons.
So as we go into wrapping this up, do you guys feel that it is harmful when old school pastors or pastors just beat up people for staying at home and watching church online? Or do you think they should open up a little bit and receive that as well?
I think anytime a pastor beats up on anybody, it is harmful, of course. Now, usually pastors who are old school and haven't adjusted to the trend of the culture, they're going to lose that group of people. And a lot of like David brought up, a lot of the churches are shrinking. And perhaps it's because they are not adjusting to the culture and adjusting to the times and the needs of the current culture.
And the pastor's role is to shepherd. It doesn't matter if you're shepherding the person who is walking in the doors of the church, who's tuning in online, or the person who you're going to see in a convalescent home or the hospital. Your job is to shepherd only. And we're not even, as pastors, you're not even the main shepherd. You're the under shepherd. God is the shepherd. Christ is the shepherd. So I think sometimes some preachers get it twisted and think that they are the king of that church, the king of that block.
Just remember, everything has its place. So.
So one thing on the well that we do, we have many people with many gifts on this thing. And on the set today, we have an illustrious author, Miss Kendra, who has recently wrote a book. Tell us a little bit about your book, Kendra.
Okay, so the title of my book is I'm Saved, But I Struggle, and it's a realistic look at salvation. I noticed growing up and even now that the narrative of salvation and coming to Christ is just, pray about it, clap, and give it to God, and you'll be okay. And that was something that I struggled with just growing up, looking for an example to show me what that looks like. And so in the book, I discuss what God showed me about my own salvation through personal trials that I've gone through, things that I saw in college, things that I looked for even when I was in elementary school, coming to church and not seeing somebody live pretty much practicing what they were preaching. And this the dynamic of what God says salvation is and what we call salvation. So thank you.
Where can we find your
Yeah, where
book?
can
You
we
can
find your book?
definitely find my book on Amazon. It's $10.99, and it's also have an ebook on Kindle for $9.99.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
Kendra.
$9.99.
Well, let's support Sister Kendra. Thank you
on.
for joining us
Support
on
the
today.
culture.
We'll see you next time on the web.